As a reporter, I've seen and heard countless stories on the battles going on overseas. And in my opinion, the best stories are the ones that come straight from the soldiers themselves.
All this training that we do, I mean, it's all about going overseas, right? So it's not about staying back in Canada and doing the paperwork, the office work that we normally do here, right? So it's finally a time that you can actually prove that you can do what it is you trained to do and what you want to do. So it's like always practicing for that hockey game and finally getting to go out and play it.
I was actually really excited. It's very similar to a firefighter who trains to put out a fire, but never actually gets to go and put out a burning house. And it was very much that feeling. I've trained for this. I wanted to be a soldier, and soldiers go overseas, and that's what I was aiming for when I joined.
A lot of people will say, are you afraid of dying, right? I mean, I don't think it was so much that in my mind as afraid of messing up and having someone else die because of my actions. So that was my biggest fear. And in that fear, I mean, it drives you to work that much harder to actually get things done right in order for these people to actually come back home, alive, or at least, that you did everything you possibly could to have these people come back home alive.
Of course I was. I'm a human. You're scared, but you're trained. So you have that confidence in you that you can make it through.
I volunteered to go to Germany. It was, at that point in time, I had been in the service for 12 years, and we always prepared for the Cold War, the Russian hordes coming across the river and trying to fight in Europe. And that was something I had trained for 12 years. So I was anxious to get there and actually be there and prepared for whenever that day would come. Unfortunately, at that point in time, the Berlin Wall fell. And 2 years later, we closed Germany. Mixed feelings. I thought my tour was a little too short, 2 years. I was hoping for 3 or 4. But we were closing the base, so the government didn't give us much of a choice. But also really looking forward for the next challenge. And that's what we go through all the time, is we move from one location to the next, from one job to another, and pick up a new challenge. So it was really exciting. The climate had changed quite a bit. But you rely on your preparedness, you rely on all the people that you've trained with, and you're up for a challenge without really knowing what the full effects are going to be should it happen. It's a different culture. They live on a day-to-day, probably because of the world wars that they have been through. They're a lot more relaxed people than most of North American people are, and they're friendly, they're accepting, so it was all around, it was positive.
In 2005, I was on the theater activation team in Afghanistan, and we set up the provincial reconstruction team in Kandahar. My job specifically was to escort convoys and provide counter-electronic measures to ensure that they were safe from command-detonated improvised explosive devices. Busy. It was very, very busy. I drove in what we called a G-Wagon with a machine gun turret and electronic warfare system in the back, and we made sure that it was on and functional and prevented the convoy from being ambushed and blown up. At first you're scared, and then you get used to it, and then you're just doing your job. And you go out and you do your job and you hope you come home.
Well, when I went over as an engineer, let's say in Afghanistan, I was with the engineer construction squadron. We had a mandate to actually go out and build stuff with the locals, using local contractors, right? So I mostly concentrate on roads, but we got some of the schools back opened up, right? So there was a good one. We made soccer fields. I had my aunt send me soccer balls, and we made soccer fields for the kids, and we gave out soccer balls whenever we went anywhere. So all those stories, whenever we had another little something going, it was nice to actually call back home and give the positive story, the positive spin on things.
A lot of good memories. Seeing the people that we helped over there. The provincial reconstruction team set up for a purpose to rebuild that area. A lot of the schools that were built since then. I joined to be a soldier. Being over doing my job, that made me feel good about myself.
I have been to Afghanistan only once, but I've also been to Haiti as well. I went over to Haiti just after the earthquake in 2010. We mostly did the relief part of things, which was for our part, for as engineers, basically concentrate on clearing of rubble. We took all the rubble away from the city streets, the clear paths, and clear the way for future development. And also we did a bunch of work for them that they wouldn't normally be able to do, and helped them out, right? So we used our equipment that we had that they wouldn't normally have, and we helped them out building some things, to such as the local mayor's office. We built it back up for them, right? Afghanistan was another story, about 8 months overseas. There we showed up and we went into a new location where there wasn't anything being done. We started talking with locals, which were very hesitant, obviously, of what we were doing. So we brought in workers from another place, another part of the country, in to start working, and whether or not the locals liked it or not, we started work. And after a while, they seen what was going on, and that we were actually there and we actually meant to do well, and we helped them out. So after a few months, we actually had locals from the little region that we're in that actually helped us out and started working for us.
It was really nice to hear that they were able to bring home some good memories as well. And when ATR returns after this quick break, the men share with us what the hardest thing for them to leave behind was.